Information Technology. I'm joined by Councilors Paniagua and Agua. I'm going to slow down here. Paniagua and Nave. Also joined by our Director of IT, Dave Proack. Those of you following along at home, we are on page 98. 97, 96 is our activity indicators. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you if you want to walk us through your department, what you do, and then we'll get into the finances in a little bit.
Sure. So I'm director of IT, and we're the IT group for the city. We do hardware, software. We procure and provide a lot of services. We're at about 30 different locations throughout the city. There's tremendous demand on us in terms of the technology that's being offered, and we have a significant investment and dedication to cybersecurity, and our backup and recovery practice is among the most important things we do. We do our best to take care of business and keep our shop in very good order.
In terms of staffing, that's where we like to go. There's a whole lot jumping around. Can you walk us through the proposed
Sure.
changes and how we got to the decisions that are being made?
Well, we've had a real challenge staffing in-house. This is nothing new. This has been a pattern over the last probably 5+ years. We have 4 different vacancies. And there's also been some jumping around because there's been an abolishment of a title or two and people getting moved to the new title. So that happened with me. Okay, that's occurring with the new budget year. That happened with me. We had an internal transfer during the year in which we created a position for someone to lead our help desk operation. So that was an incumbent that was promoted to that position. So that resulted in a title change. It still leaves us with 4 vacant positions. And it is a struggle filling those positions with experienced people. One of the results is we've developed a really strong working relationship with a number of key consultants that we consider part of our team. They come to all of our meetings, or part of our group. We can't, in some cases, can't get by without them. And these are long-term consultants that have been with the city for decades, longer than many of the employees have been. So it's not the perfect solution, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for getting the job done, and that's how we're getting it done now.
Is it because of the payment? I mean, the
Salary range?
Yes.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the IT job market is still pretty strong, especially for experienced people. And you're a little bit hamstrung by our limited salary range here and our flexibility. And also you have a residency requirement that plays into it. So you have a pool that is relatively small. It's a competitive environment for good employees, and you're limited to what you can pay, and you have a residency requirement that is non-negotiable.
So the vacancies that you show here, they've been vacant for a while, or it's not just recent?
What are the vacant titles currently?
The vacant titles are, we have 1 programmer analyst that is vacant, position that's vacant. We have a office automation specialist that is vacant. So we had 2 office automation specialists. One of those incumbents was promoted to lead the help desk effort. So their old position is vacant. We have a vacancy around a enterprise technology lead. That's a new position, a new title that's being created. It's a new title for us. It's one that's, I believe, on civil service already. And there's another position that will lead a cybersecurity effort.
So have they been vacant for a long time, or just recently?
The programmer analyst position's been vacant about 6, 7 years.
So you still want to keep it? I mean, if you have
I
any.
do. I do. One way or another, I've got to get the work done. And if we're able to cultivate the civil service list and find that combination where somebody's either in the city or willing to move into the city, then we'd love to be able to move quickly and fill that position.
Dave, what's your new title going to be?
Pardon me?
What is your new title going to be?
Oh,
And what's
director
the
of something. I think it's director of cybersecurity and business continuity.
Continuity.
Yeah. Sorry.
and what is the difference between your upcoming role and your current role?
During this last fiscal year, with the promotion of an internal employee to lead the help desk, I no longer answer the bell for the help desk all the time. So I've been able to concentrate more of my efforts on cybersecurity and business continuity. And I'm able to, with the experience I have, lead some of our larger projects as well.
Can you go over with me or with us, why do you feel it's hard to fill these vacancies? Now, we've heard about maybe because of the salary, people moving into the city, but there are other reasons that maybe people don't want to work in the city.
I honestly think it's as simple as those two. I really do.
It could also be other issues too. Sometimes politics comes into this for whatever reason. I can't say, but we've had difficulties with IT. It's made the news, and maybe there's a lot of people who are qualified, and maybe there's a list of places where some people would rather not work here in the city, this position, for other reasons that, well, we don't want to talk about. But that's how I feel, and maybe other people feel too.
So, yeah,
More than couple of the issues that what you have said.
Okay, and that's a fair comment. I don't agree at all.
Okay.
I think it's easy to prop up a couple of failed projects as a reason why
Okay.
someone may not want to come work here. These positions, the programmer analyst position, has been vacant for 6 years. So and save for the last 6 or 8 months, IT doesn't do a lot of politics.
Okay.
We're there to get the job done. My staff doesn't typically have turnover with new administrations. There are no appointed positions in core IT. There are none. They're all civil service tested positions.
So these positions at this rate, you want to be competitive with other cities.
I want to be, if I'm competitive with other cities, I don't want to compete with Albany. I want to compete with Onondaga County. I want to compete with the city school district, and I want to compete where I can with the private sector.
Okay.
And I don't want to make this a campaign about
No,
salary
no.
ranges, but a lateral move to the school district probably gets you a 10 to 20% raise, and a lateral move to the county probably gets you a 10 or 15% raise. That's the reason. This the politics and this. Yeah, that's there's a lot of politics going on. We don't pay attention to it. We had a lot of good work going on. We got some great projects we got out. We launched last year. There's a lot of good work being done. My folks, we don't pay a lot of attention to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the temporary services that you are, where you don't need anymore, I'm saying here,
Excuse me?
the temporary services
Oh, temporary services.
that you don't need it anymore? That position, that project, what is it, project manager? Data.
Oh, yeah. So we have a couple of part-time former employees that we've hired back, and we have some budgeted money for them. That comes further down. The temporary services, yeah, I think we just move the money around a little bit. We've earmarked it for a couple of former employees who help us with projects as needed.
Okay.
Dave, I'm looking at the professional service line. We hear up above, that we've got all these positions that are vacant, right? And we don't build a vacancy rate into our budget. And so, all of the vacant positions that we leave in the budget, you end up with that pot of money in your budget, right? And, our trend has been upwards in terms of professional services.
Yeah.
And we've got a, significant drop for the proposed budget year. How can you explain that?
Well, yeah, the graph going left to right goes pretty straight up. It's a pretty significant slope. We've had some really great projects get launched and gone into production over the last few years. We migrated our entire city population to M365 from an on-premise email server, and we, in fact, just got done 2 weeks ago doing the same thing for the police department. For the first time ever, you're going to have a police department that is in a unified platform with the city. So no longer is it a pile of 1,200 employees and another pile of 600. Now it's unified, one platform, no more on-premise email servers, which is the bane of the existence of any cybersecurity guy. So what you're seeing there is a result of launching some really aggressive projects over the last few years.
And are we not launching those same projects in the current year if
Well,
that goes down?
there's always more good work to go on, but, upgrading your email environment and your infrastructure is a real significant move. You don't do those every year. It's probably a once in a decade sort of project.
I'm looking at,
Can you talk to us a little bit about on the overtime? I see here that, it went up a little, but
Yeah, so our overtime is extremely limited. It's got to be less than 2% of our budget. And quite frankly, it's when as you know, we are trying to move to a more modern payroll solution. Our current payroll solution runs, and it requires probably more human intervention than we'd like. So there are times when our staff has to stay 5, 6, 6:30 at night waiting to get a payroll run. That's quite frankly the only overtime we pay. It's very limited. If it's more than 1.5% of the budget, I'd be surprised.
did the math real quick, Dave. So we're looking to 41% year-over-year increase.
In what budget line, please?
Fiscal year 25 adopted through proposed
Page 98.
26.
right?
Pardon me?
98.
Yeah,
right?
98.
Yeah.
How do you account for that? And
Help me out here. What budget, what
so
account are you
fiscal
looking
year
at?
25
Fiscal year
adopted
25.
compared to fiscal year 26 proposed. There's about a $700,000 gap. 700 divided by 7 or 1.7 million. We end up with 41% increase in the budget for the IT department.
Well, all of it's in the operating supplies and expenses, 540,500.
Right, and we typically don't see a line go from 2 million to 56,000 to 850,000. What's, why are we jumping around in that category? What are we getting for that?
So part of it is, we brought, as I mentioned, we just migrated the police department, who was in a old, out-of-date email system on-premise. We just migrated them to Microsoft 365. In January this year, we entered into a new 3-year commitment with Microsoft for both the city and the police department. So a lot of that increase is from Microsoft 365 migration and just moving forward the licensing costs. We've got, looking at probably 2,400 people on a modern platform, whereas a year and a half ago, you didn't have that. So that
accounts for an $800,000 jump?
So it accounts for probably 297,000 of it is 297,000 of it is from the police department alone, I believe. Yeah, it's a big number. It's not all from 365.
So, councilors, for what it's worth, I believe the previous fiscal year that had the $2 million was when software lived solely in IT, which it has migrated to API. And I believe, to Dave's point, though, the majority of the expenses in the existing year, the proposed year, are Microsoft 365 expenses.
So then why are we not putting that under API if, we just talked about the shift from 2 million to 56,000 because we wanted to put
Yeah, I mean,
all of our
it's
software in one place, and now
Right.
you're already segmenting again.
so
Took
it's
1 year
not
to do that?
Yeah, it's not an exact science. I would say what we were trying to do is distinguish between what is really infrastructure. 365 is something that's used across departments and enterprise system. I mean, Dave, you can jump in here too, and softwares are more, that are not enterprise-wide infrastructure. A C-click fix, the Sears City line is not really city IT infrastructure.
Yeah, it is more art than science in
Right.
terms of what bucket, where these piles of expenses should go. So if you're looking at the law system, case management system for the law, that's going to stick over in API. They're going to pay those maintenance costs. A 365, which is our overhead for having a modern workplace, if you will, okay? It impacts every single full-time employee in the city and now in the police department. That's going to live over here, kind of with the infrastructure team. API is going to take care of the individual applications, something for DPW, something for law, something for assessment.
So even if that was a $300,000
Yeah.
jump, we're still short 500 grand there.
Yeah, I do think I think most of it's from the 365 split. I don't have the breakdown right now.
Go up here. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so, okay, so some of it is from a new Azure, I'm sorry, a new backup and recovery technology. Some of it is from Azure. Azure is another, it's not really Microsoft 365, but it's cloud-based services. We've really made a conscious effort to reduce our footprint of new servers here. Last year, we probably bought a quarter of what we usually do. Quite frankly, I had sent the council a letter about my capital request, and that kind of got held up in this whole whatever. So my capital request is getting the monies released is, say, 6 months late. One of the reasons we've been able to keep lights on around here is because we don't spend as much in capital on servers in-house. So that a lot of that has been migrated to the cloud. You see that in, there's a line here for Azure. We didn't have that line 3 years ago. And that's an increase of $110,000. All right?
But then where was it last year?
Okay.
Right, so we
Yeah,
got numbers
yeah, I
jumping way
understand.
up and
Yeah,
way down,
yeah, I
and I'm just
understand
trying
that.
to make sense. And
Okay.
now you're talking about, migration or morphing
Yeah.
into 365. What happened to our existing platform that we were using SharePoint before?
Last year, we weren't spending that much in Azure because we bought the servers in-house and we procured them ourselves, set them up ourselves, and spent the money there. Now we're doing it in the cloud. So it is a bit of a change in terms of how it hit. This money that we spend on Azure now, that was a capital expense 3 years ago. It's no longer a capital expense. You can't capitalize those cloud costs. Okay, so it used to show up in my capital request. If I was still doing that, then we wouldn't be here talking about last year's capital being 6 months late. Now we can, because that hits the operating line, doesn't hit the capital line. It's a different model, and it impacts our bottom line in a different way.
I had a question on the contractual other expenses. We have office supplies, operating supplies, utilities, professional services. Do you ever break them down and move them from one line over to the other?
Yeah, if we've got $30,000 in paper and pens, we don't. But if we had that and we weren't going to spend that and we needed that in another line, we can do an internal transfer from one account to another as long as it's within IT.
Okay, so travel, training, say development, then you go professional services. So someone has to train out of town, and it's in regards to professional services, they're learning. So you could put it up here with professional services and take it out of travel, training, development.
Yes.
What I'm saying, you
Yes.
can move things,
Yep.
you
Long-
can move it
yep.
around.
So who do we get reimbursements from in your reimbursements from other funds? It's projected at 17,000. It's little, but
The water fund reimburses us for part of the staffing. We still do all the programming in-house for our water utility and our water billing. So the water fund will reimburse us for that. It's a certain portion of one employee that we're reimbursed for. Just like if they buy PCs or servers or anything out there, they will in turn use the water fund's money, not the general fund, for that.
So one last question.
Yes,
So
sir.
we have vacancies. If they're vacant for another year, how is it going to affect the operations? If we don't get these
Yeah, I mean,
positions filled?
That's the same predicament we've been in for the last few years.
Okay.
Our job is to get the job done.
Okay,
It's highly preferable that it's done in-house with
Right.
full-time employees. If it's not, the buses still need to run. So we depend on professional services more than I wish we did.
so you have to go outside, you have to go outside.
Yep. And these are, they're professional services and they're contracted and they're the result of an RFP award. But these are long-term engagements. These aren't, I know there's been a lot of discussion about some of the recent contractors hired here over the last few years. The professional services that we hire and we employ are largely folks that have been here for decades. They have a lot of institutional knowledge, which is really important when we have a vacancy and people move on.
So then sometimes that's the reason why you have overtime. Sometimes they're working extra hours.
No, we don't pay overtime for contractors. The overtime is very limited to just some in-house staff that's involved in the payroll runs.
So can I ask, why do we pretend, right? If we've got a position that's been open for 7 years, why do we even pretend? Why don't we commit to contracting that out rather than doing a line here that makes it look like we've got people in house and then we throw a low ball, $575,000 in terms of our professional services, but then it comes back at $1.2 million. Why don't we commit one direction or the other? Why do we do this, clunky hybrid?
I think part of the reason is because we live in a clunky old civil service system. So if there's a test that's given this past March, and the test results come out in August, all of a sudden there's a group of people that are reachable by the city, and we canvass them and they live in the city. Then I've got to go to the administration and say, hey, let's take a whole bunch of money out of consulting. Let's fund some new positions because there's a new test and there's a whole bunch of people in the city who took the test and passed it. This is a good word. This is a clunky system we live in. These are the rules of the road. We didn't pick them. We've got to abide by them. And the result is we fund these positions in hopes that we can fill them. And if we can't, the bus has still got to run. So we move some of that money to professional services and we get it done there. I understand what you're saying. It seems like this dance we do. I don't want to do it either. As long as you tell me I have the flexibility that if that list gets refreshed and we get some really good, solid candidates and we can move and hire them,
But
let's
we
do
haven't
that.
done that in 7 or 6 years, in 2 positions
Yeah.
in 7 years, another 2 in 6. It continues to impact the budget,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is now a little fragile.
That's a valid criticism. This is the this is the system we have for filling positions.
Just to build off of what Dave said, and to your point, Councilor Williams, you're right. I mean, we need to pick which direction we're going to go. And we've obviously invested in things like our digital services team to try and build that in-house capacity, but we're also very reliant on contractors. And to Dave's point, those contractors have been around for a long time. They have a lot of institutional knowledge, but we need to pick which path we're going to go down. And I think, what we are attempting to do, in part through the reorganization of API, IT, digital services, is to try and have more cross-division collaboration to transfer some of that institutional knowledge to people that are actually in the institution and paid for by the institution. So to Dave's point, there are people we've worked with for a very long time that, know so much, but it's not sustainable. They're not going to work as a contractor with the city forever, and we need to start transferring that knowledge, which is really what the reorganization is meant to do, to try and have someone who's looking across IT, API, digital services to see how we can invest in that capacity in-house and rely less on outside contractors, which, we will always need to have a relationship with outside contractors. If you look at, and, people who have heard me talk about it are tired of hearing me talk about it, but I'm going to say it again, the engineering department. Engineering department has a really great, strong team up there. Projects do come up that they either don't have the expertise or they don't have the bandwidth. So Mary will reach out to somebody that she has on her general services agreement, CNS, for example, and say, I have this specific project. Can you give me, whether or not you can do it, what the scope of work would be, what the deliverables would be, what the timeline is, and what the cost is. And I think we really need to start migrating IT to more of that model rather than these contractors who do an amazing job and we rely on heavily, but they're so integrated into our system that sometimes it's, difficult to tell where they end and we begin. And so we really need to try and move towards a model where we're not as reliant on outside contractors. But to Dave's point, they've done an outstanding job for us and come through in a million different ways. We just need to get on a pathway that's more sustainable and either build that capacity in-house, which, we do have the numbers and we have the bodies and folks that are willing to do it, or we just need to decide we're going to contract it all out. And the administration is moving towards the former.
How will the reorg impact this department?
So I think it's giving some more role clarity. If IT is working on a project, what I'd like to have is someone who's looking across the different departments and divisions to say, IT is working on this project. Is that something that we should be tapping into digital services? Is there somebody on that team that has some level of expertise or should have that level of expertise that should be working alongside, if we are going to contract something out, is somebody working alongside that contractor so that hopefully they're building their knowledge and expertise and in-house, capacity so that we can hopefully reduce the amount that we rely on outside contractors. We'll never get rid of them entirely because, and that's true, every department at some point needs to outsource services because of bandwidth or specialized expertise. But it's having those folks so integrated in our operation that just makes it not sustainable. So, to me, it's somebody who's giving more of a global view and can look at that vacant position and say, is that with the division of labor between IT, digital services, and API, could that money better be spent someplace else because they're taking a look at the entire organization and not just the department itself? Thank you.
I guess the other question would be if, these positions that have been empty for so long, what can we do different this year to try and get people in them? What's going to be different?
Well, again, we work within the civil service system, right? So the positions we can hire, we could change the titles as we've done on some of these. We are limited to civil service titles. You can't, some of our monikers are pretty old and less than exciting, especially for a younger generation. What could we do? Money always helps. You could throw money at the problem, and if we increased our salary lines, I think we'd certainly be more competitive. I think it does hurt us when the two biggest municipalities around us, the county and the school district, both pay significantly more for the same positions. people ask me why that's so, and I'll be darned if I can give them a good answer. I don't know. I mean, the city as a whole loses people to the school district and the county every year. Nobody ever takes a pay cut. Ever.
It's funny because, we're all under the same umbrella, the city of Syracuse. And we have the school district budget here, police department budget here, people working city hall here. Each pay scale is different, but at the end of the day, we're all working for the same cause.
All the same taxpayers, Counselor.
Taxpayers, yeah, thank you. It is. Still comes out of their pockets. Yes, Corey.
I mean, it might be moving away from that particular civil service title if we're just not yielding any fruit. Digital services is fully staffed right now. So what is it that they're able to do? And I think to Dave's point, they don't have as many constraints as they do, as IT does. And so, maybe it's moving away from that title and seeing how we're able to attract, the right hand is able to attract people, but the left hand isn't for not identical but related work. And so what is it that we can do differently in IT that we seem to be doing in digital services that is attracting folks and is fully staffed?
Did you want to talk about my 24-25 capital request?
Sure.
Okay.
Please. It will be on an agenda when we get our IT audit back.
Under when the IT audit back. Help me out with that.
What do you mean?
So you talking about the Bonadil?
Yes.
Okay.
Fox Point, but yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't have any visibility. I don't control when that is done or what's
You
going on with
played
it.
a critical role in.
Yeah,
in it,
we've
right?
provided all that data.
We heard
So
that there
this
were
is
delays.
This is going to be held hostage until that moves forward.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. It's going to
That was the
have.
condition at the very beginning.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't made clear to me. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to get the job done. And if this stops projects from going forward, at least I have my answer.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.